Welcome to Unsilent with your hosts Dave and Brian. This is not another current events podcast. We're digging deeper, diagnosing, and discussing what's really going on today, how we got here, and providing observations for future generations.
Welcome to Unsilent. We're Brian and Dave. We're hoping you let us know where we think you got it right and where we totally missed the point, which you can do by going to unsilentpodcast.com or Rumble or any of our social channels. So let's get into it. What do you think we ought to talk about today, Brian?
Well, you said you want to talk about AI. Let's get into it. That seems to be like one of the top 5 topics in the country or the world right now.
It is. Let's talk to a luminary about the topic, shall we?
Do you know any? I don't know any luminaries.
I know one. He's got a few dollars, so let me just bring him up and see what he has to say about it.
So this is a video clip you're pulling up of Elon Musk talking to Tucker Carlson, it looks like.
Talking to Tucker about AI.
I was in college, really. It was one of the things that, the sort of 4 or 5 things I thought would really affect the future dramatically. It is fundamentally profound in that the smartest creatures, as far as we know, on this earth are humans, is our defining characteristic.
Yes.
We're obviously weaker than, say, chimpanzees and less agile, but we are smarter. So now what happens when something vastly smarter than the smartest person comes along in silicon form? It's very difficult to predict what will happen in that circumstance. It's called the singularity. It's a singularity like a black hole, because you don't know what happens after that. It's hard to predict. So I think,
and that's really it. It's hard to predict what happens after that. And so let's predict what happens with AI, shall we?
Well,
so
I don't have it. I'm not in the prediction game. I'm not sure I'm qualified for this, but I think that it's an interesting topic for sure. And arguably, for where you and I are sitting today, arguably one of the top most important things we're faced with for sure.
Absolutely. Did you see a while back, Brian? Let's start with the end of the world, shall we? And then we can move into some maybe more mundane things.
So is it a cold burnout, or is it like a fiery ball of flames? Like how's it go?
Well, nobody knows because they're smarter than us. Yeah. So here's the question. About a year ago, a bunch of the smart people, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, I think Bezos was in on it. A lot of the high tech folks issued a warning that said, essentially, we ought to pause AI research and development for 6 months, and we ought to get some regulations around this thing. We ought to get some boundaries, because if we don't, it might kill us all. Now, Elon, in this clip, if you listen further on down the road, he goes into the notion that what happens if an intelligence is so far greater than us that we can't even understand or control it. So the chimpanzees, the great apes of the world, they're solely dependent on us for their survival. So what if we were eclipsed by another intelligence? What if that intelligence had different motivations than we have? What if that intelligence decided that, like in most of the sci-fi works, that humans were too erratic and too illogical, and chose the universe would be better off if we weren't around. So there's a real question about whether or not artificial intelligence is going to be, on balance, a great thing or a problem, or is that all over exaggerated? So I've been doing a lot of study on that recently, just because I'm a geek and that's what I do.
Yeah.
And we use AI in my business. We use artificial intelligence to do research for us. So as we're working for clients, as we're looking up for market research, we use a variety of different AIs in order to get us data that we currently don't have access to. But it's important to understand that the current version of artificial intelligence is not is not a real intelligence. The question is, what happens when we have what's called an artificial general intelligence? You and I are very general intelligences. Some might see we're a mile
Thanks,
wide
I
and an inch
think.
deep. Yes. So we can handle a whole variety of different situations. We're not pre-programmed to do any one thing, whereas computers, for the most part, get programmed to do a specific thing. Even things like ChatGPT, the current Rage AI, etc. They're all programmed to do mostly certain specific things. That isn't terribly, dangerous as far as most people are concerned. The question is, what happens when an artificial intelligence is a general intelligence like us? I could throw out any topic and you could say something about that topic. You could create off the top of your head about that topic. That's when artificial intelligence stands a chance of becoming a little bit dangerous. So that's what everybody's concerned about, is when we get an AI like Skynet that's from Terminator, or Mr. Data from Star Trek, who can handle
Yep.
a whole variety of different situations, and probably better than we can. So this is
Faster
kind of
than
the
we can
landscape.
for sure, and a better recollection. So
Yes.
better meaning a deeper volume of information to quickly pull from. Like, our memories are not great. Things
Right.
we learned in third grade we've forgotten. So
Yep.
the amount of information we've retained is much less than a computer, and the speed at
Right.
which we could pull things up and formulate it into thoughts like that would be pretty inferior, I would imagine.
Well, and now here's where it becomes interesting. So right now, computers, artificial intelligence, a sophisticated one, can beat a grandmaster chess champion every single time without fail.
Right.
Humans cannot beat AIs when it comes to chess, good ones. Here's what's interesting about that, though. The AI strategies that are used to beat the grandmasters are strategies that never occurred to the
Right.
grandmasters. The other thing is, so it's not just, so it is pure computational power, predicting mathematically what comes next, but
Yeah.
it's also coming up with strategies that nobody anticipated they would come up with. You're familiar with the Chinese game Go? It's sort of another one of those sort of symbol games. It's kind of like chess, but from the East. So what was surprising when AI became better than humans in Go is that it came up with novel strategies that never again occurred to its creators. Now, those are very simple
Yeah.
illustrations, but what if AI comes up with stuff that we didn't think about and can't even cope with? So what if if it figures out ways to do things that are so far beyond our human experience that they never even occurred to us?
Well, I
Hopefully it's
don't
good.
think it's from my perspective, that's not a what if. It's that's a certainty, isn't it? I mean,
It's a
how can it go
when.
any other
Sure.
way?
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
it can't go any other way than for it to figure out new ways for airplanes to work, for example, or
Right.
submarines or cars. I mean, like mechanical things, like it can't go any other way than it figures out things
Right.
that we are not capable of figuring out. That seems like as a certainty to me. Is that
No, it's true, and in fact, it's
okay?
happening right now. One of the things that I find fascinating about the current iteration of artificial intelligence, which is just, it's a mathematical brute for it. I can describe it. It's a mathematical brute force model of artificial intelligence, where they take a massive amount of data, what's called a large language model, could be billions, trillions of words, and then the artificial intelligence like ChatGPT or Google Gemini figures out the most statistically likely set of words and phrases to come after any other set of words and phrases, and
Yeah,
therefore it becomes, human conversationally. The question that has been addressed by scientists recently is, because it has access to so much data, it's been able to come up with new molecules, new formulas for diseases and other things like that
yeah,
it would have taken us thousands of years. So some very positive aspects to this, and I don't want to come across saying that AI is definitely hell and is definitely going to kill us all and close the pod bay doors, and we're all going
yeah,
to die
yeah.
in space. So I don't want to come across that way, but it does open some new horizons that there is no doubt that assuming Kenny G survives to the AI future, that Kenny G is going to be dealing with.
Yeah, I don't like, I guess for me, the things I worry about with AI are not really about what AI can do as far as computational thing. It seems to me like, of course it's going to come up with a better window cleaning solution than we've had since 1953. Of course it's going to come up with a new way to, manufacture car tires. Like that stuff just seems like, of course that stuff's going to happen. And
Yep.
I'm not even even mildly worried about that kind of stuff.
Right.
Things that worry about me about AI are AI is limited to the data it's provided.
Yes.
And it's limited to the morality created in the coding, right? So for
Yes. Yep.
instance, let's say that we programmed an AI to teach 5th grade or 7th grade history, and we told AI that the South won the Civil War.
Right.
AI would just operate under that as if that's fact. Like there's no room for debating that. Now, people would say, well, AI would have access to the encyclopedias and the information would be available. Okay, but what if the people who created this particular AI wanted to find the most efficient, fastest, best way to teach 7th grade students, but they just changed the data and just said the South won? They would be remarkably efficient at some point at teaching the students. It would come up with new, novel methods, like maybe that doesn't 7-minute teaching bites instead of the normal 52-minute class periods that you and I grew up with.
Right.
Like who knows? It would certainly come up with those things, but it's limited to the quality, like the garbage in, garbage out thing. It's limited to the quality of data it's provided. So if people who were creating AI had an axe to grind, had an agenda, had a narrative, which right now in this moment in time, there's no shortage of that.
That's right.
AI is going to be no better than the quality of information it's given. So that's the first thing.
That's right.
And right now, in this moment in time, in 2024, talking about things in the terms of what's true and false is not really allowed in some cases. It's certainly not popular. We
Right.
talk about things in terms of what's information, what's disinformation, what's information, and now what's malinformation.
Right.
We've lost sight of even calling balls and strikes on truth and falsehoods.
Right.
So that is the bigger concern for me. And then you take that problem and you multiply that by the moral code that will be written into AI's computational strategies.
Right.
Are going to be at the mercy of whoever writes them. So, for example, that guy we listened to a few weeks ago, Noel Herrera or whatever his name is, that says
Sure. Yeah.
humans don't have rights. Okay, let's say that guy programmed AI and said, Hal, humans don't have rights. That's a construct. Now they'll believe they have rights, Hal, but they don't really have rights. That's not really a thing. And so it's not a thing for you to consider. Just be aware that they're going to be upset that their perception of rights is going to go away. Okay, well, AI is going to behave as if.
Sure.
And so when you take the quality of the data that's provided times the moral code that's in the calculation for how AI makes decisions, that for me is where it gets like, holy shit, the potential for things going sideways goes from not could happen, not might happen, not probably would happen, but almost certainly will happen.
Right. And that's a very near term problem, because that's kind of that's the state of AI right now. It doesn't know what it doesn't know. It makes no judgments based on that are outside of its programming. It's constrained by the rule sets that it's given to think through, essentially.
Yeah.
And so that's a very real problem right now. Well, and basically what you're saying is using AI to manipulate societies in ways that are not just generally, beneficial for society. Now,
well, what I'm saying is if you told AI, for instance, like that guy who told us that humans don't have rights, I'm going to go out on a limb. I know this is a stretch. I'm going to guess he doesn't think that there's any kind of higher power than us.
Right.
So if a guy like him programs AI and says, listen, you're dealing with a bunch of morons and advanced monkeys who think that there's a being in the sky that gives them all their power, and that's all a bunch of nonsense. just, FYI, that's what they think, but they're all complete morons for thinking that
Right.
way. All
Right.
right, well, AI will make decisions as if,
Yeah.
and that will alter in ways that I can't even comprehend or wouldn't even know to look to. I don't even know which direction to look to figure out how this would manifest. But
Yeah.
how could it go any other way than a guy saying if they believe in Allah, or they believe in Jesus Christ, or they believe in Hinduism or Buddhism or whatever, that they're all like, that's all nonsense. AI is going to direct and make decisions as if, and that will substantively change just basic things that again, I couldn't even begin to
Yeah.
fathom what that would look like. I have no idea.
Well, I think some of what it looks like is based on the trust. Some of the impact will be based, and it even now is based on the trust that people put into AI and technology, and and well speaking anything, so something that speaks well. So let me give you a couple
Yeah.
of examples of that. So I was watching a clip of somebody who is apparently an expert in AI talking to Stephen Colbert. And he was arguing for that AI needs to be regulated, and it does pose some risks, not get rid of it, but it poses some risks. And Colbert says no. He says just turn over everything to the machines right now. He said what? No, that's a terrible idea. No, Colbert says turn over to the machines right now and let the people of vision and wisdom who program them run everything through the machines. So I think a danger, a manifestation of what you're talking about is that there's enough people that might want to do that say, well, robots are by themselves, artificial intelligence is by itself just a fact machine, and therefore whatever I hear from that fact machine must be true, and I'm therefore going to follow it, not taking into account the inputs that you're talking about. You're talking about we have a moral code, a moral framework that we, each of us, operate within, that sort of guides how we use facts and how we use skills and capabilities. That either developed or was created in us. That
Yeah.
isn't necessarily the case with technology.
I'm going to go ahead again, go way out on a limb here and guess that Stephen Colbert would not have that position, or would not have that belief, if we said the foundational rules for AI is that all decisions will be made through a theocratic decision-making criteria.
Yes, right. I don't
I'm,
think he would
I'm
have
going to
the
guess
same
he'd change
opinion.
his mind pretty freaking rapidly,
Yes.
that now
Yeah.
AI is not such a good idea, right? So
Right.
this is the crux of my concern, is the people who are all for it. And again, I'm not anti-AI. It's going to happen. Like, it doesn't, I don't,
Sure.
whether or not I like it is so far down the scale of what matters here. It's going to happen. I think the people that are super pro it, like pro AI, like Stephen Colbert, look at it as, finally we'll be calling balls and strikes in the world based on my criteria, which is not based on
Right.
these Christians or these Muslims and their idea of morality and things like that. We're going to get to
Yeah.
science. Let science make some decisions around here for a change.
Right.
And he's really excited about that. Well, okay, except for, I don't know, 80% of the population of the planet believes in a higher power, so that's
Right.
probably going to be a problem for them, right? And but he gets to be on the side that where he gets to feel, again, going back to our recurring themes here, proven to be the righteous one and the smarter
Yes.
one, and
Yeah.
the guy who's going to be proven right. So of course he's all for, because in his mind,
Yeah.
I'm guessing, it's going to be a scientific approach. And again, if we told Stephen Colbert, fine, we're gonna do all these things you said, we're gonna rush through AI as fast as possible, and we're gonna go ahead and tell it that the real cause of slavery was the black people selling the black slaves in Africa to Europe and North America. They're the real culprits of slavery. Again, I'm gonna guess he would say, well, that's not what I wanted. That's not true. That's misinformation. So we can't do that with AI. So
Yeah.
again, that it's all about who gets to put the data in that the AI is going to draw
Yeah.
from to make all these fantastic decisions it's going to make.
And it's a feature of our age that people want to believe in technocracy and not just science, but scientism, the idea that science can provide all meaning, that technology can provide all meaning in life, and therefore whatever it says is going to be true and factual and righteous. So then the
Right.
question is, so what Kenny G, if it gets this far, what Kenny G will have to be able to do is distinguish, if he were to be a human in our sense of being humans, he would have to be able to distinguish what is reality and what makes sense,
Yeah.
versus what is convincingly told. One of the greatest dangers of artificial intelligence in our current day and age is the idea of stuff that's put out there as being fact, as being true,
Yeah.
but is either, image wise a deep fake. So,
Yeah.
from here on out, anybody can make with, we've got some episodes online. Anybody could make you and I say anything that they want to say. They want us to
Right.
say in our voices.
Yep.
So that's what they
It
call a
would
deep
look
fake.
and
So
sound exactly like you and I really did say those things.
it would sound exactly identical. In
Yeah.
fact, one of the fun uses of AI is there's a series of YouTube videos. I think they're on YouTube or some of the social media channels, where it has presidents Bush, Obama, Biden, and Trump all getting together and doing things together. And
Yeah.
in some of those, they sound so realistic, the way that they're
Yeah.
interacting. You think that they're actually talking to one another. Well, imagine if you can't, if human beings, if we can't tell the difference between reality around us and what is just a computer generated hallucination,
Yeah.
then we've got some real problems.
So imagine, like, this is just one of the areas where this could happen. So of course you would have the scenarios where somebody doesn't like a person and they put out a deep fake of them, having sex with a goat or something like that.
Right.
Some wild, crazy, like horrible thing, right? And like, okay, but I think people would like have the wherewithal to go, okay, that's probably not right. But imagine a
Right.
situation where it's a presidential debate and it's supposed to air on Thursday night at 8 o'clock on whatever the major channels where you watch that kind of thing, whatever the year this is. And where I live in Phoenix, I see one, and where you live in Tacoma, Washington, you see another one, and people live in
Yeah.
Utah see a different one, and we we all see a different version of the same quote unquote presidential debate.
Right.
I mean, just something that simple, one
Yeah.
thing like that could completely shift not only the course of history, but have people living in a completely delusional world even more than we already do. So
Yeah.
I kind of wonder on like one of the things that I've been wondering about how as far as this specific, like we'll get to a point where we won't be able to trust video,
Sure.
which is going to be wild because right now, like you're in the marketing space, like
Yeah.
video is what people like. If it's not a 20-second video, like people don't watch it. They don't read
Right.
anymore. They don't
Yep.
look at pictures that much anymore. They don't look at long form videos anymore. Everything's
That's right.
these bite-sized videos. Like I don't
Reload.
know. I'm going to guess 80+% of the content absorbed every day by humans is bite-sized videos. Is that
Sure.
80%?
Sure.
That's
Oh,
probably pretty,
yeah.
that's
Easy. Easy.
conservative
Yeah.
probably, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens when we go from that to we can't trust anything we see on video and we just dismiss all video? Like I
Right.
could see a world in 10 years where video is not even a thing that people rely on, like except for like entertainment, movies and stuff like that, because
Sure.
you can't trust anything you see on video because of deepfakes.
Well, the question is, will we do that, or will we just be so deceived by? I mean, we've got thousands, tens of thousands of years of biological training to trust what our eyes see. Right. I mean, that's human
Yeah.
beings. So will we be able to emotionally and will we be able to do that, even if we know it's not true? Will we be
No,
able to discount it?
I don't think so. That's why I think that it might be a point in time, not the point in time, but a point in time where technology gets so good that we actually regress and get back to kind of more fundamental things like human touch and human interaction, like
Sure.
personal. Like right now, we've just gotten to a point where we value less families having dinner at the dinner table at 6 o'clock every night than we did in 1958.
Sure.
It's just the way
Sure.
it is. I
Yeah.
can see a scenario where that stuff kind of thing has a complete resurgence because it's the only thing you can count on is what you can touch.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that could be that could be the saving grace of all this, that it drives us back to more fundamental
Well,
pursuits.
I wouldn't go that far because like you and I were talking as we wrapped up our recording last week. Like we were talking about like what the hell's going on with these people like taking mosquitoes and just artificially doing things with them and then turning them
Right,
loose in the wild. Like who
right,
decided that whoever it is, whether it's Bill Gates or whoever it is,
yeah,
who decided that they can just take mosquitoes and genetically alter them and then turn them loose in the wild and like nobody really gets to say on that. Like
right,
no, okay, so why wouldn't AI be the same way? Why would
yeah,
let's say we decide in the United States of America, we decide we're going to have some strict regulation on AI, which I would imagine we'll have to. Like I don't see how we could, but
yeah,
that doesn't mean that North Korea will. That doesn't mean that South
right,
Korea will. It doesn't mean that Russia will. It
right,
doesn't mean that Sweden will. Like there's going to be bad actors who are going to get their hands on technology and
yeah,
it's going to alter how we live our lives. And like you and I have talked before about as it relates to the fourth turning and like these cycles we go through, you know, if you were a person who was alive in 1928, there's no in the United States of America, like the roaring 20s before the big crash, the Great Depression, before all that stuff, there's no way a person could have imagined the technological advancement in our country going from the Model T
yeah,
in the
that's right.
20s to Sherman tanks and nuclear bombs and like this the technological advancement in less than
Yeah,
20 years was had to be mind-blowing, right?
yeah,
Well, we're
yeah,
going to go through the same thing and it's in ways that I can't even imagine what it's going to be,
right,
but our world will look just like in 1948, looking back to 1928, it kind of was like going back to the old west in some ways. Like
right.
the cars that they drove and the streets that they drove on and the way the cities
Yeah,
were constructed, that 20-year span, technology just changed dramatically. And then we go through decades where it doesn't change all that much, right?
yeah,
Certain things and whatever. I think we're going to go through that with AI,
yep,
where it's going to dramatically change the technological landscape of everything. Just like and what I don't want to be is the guy who in 1905 was the guy who made my living shoeing horses, and I'm complaining about the car coming out. Like this is the end of the
right,
world that the car is coming out because
right,
I know how to shoe horses.
right,
And I make carriages that horses pull, so I'm afraid of the car. Like I don't want to be that guy,
right.
but I'm also aware that there's people out there manipulating mosquitoes of all things and different
Sure.
things like that. And of course, they're going to use AI to their advantage, which is not likely to. When people use things like this to their advantage, it generally is to elevate a very small percentage of the population, not always to do things for the collective good.
Well, AI. All technology is a lever. It's a lever for human. It has been today
Yeah.
a lever for human intelligence. So the printing press was a lever for human intelligence. And in fact, I
And you
was
were like 14 or 15 when that came out, right?
16, yeah,
16.
16. I still have ink under my fingernails right here. You see,
Right. I mean, you've
these
seen a lot
young
of this stuff
people,
firsthand.
these young people today. What are you going to do with them? I don't know. But the thing about the printing press was that it leveraged, or it levered, if you will, human intelligence, and it also levered human economy. So from
Yep.
the for thousands of years beforehand, the human economy would grow. Human population economy would grow just a little bit. Every decade, century,
Yeah.
millennia. Printing press comes out, and human economy and human population doubles very quickly. And then
Right.
eventually you get to the industrial age, the time span shortened yet again, because it levered our ability to do physical things and produce things in ways we never were able to do before. The digital economy did the same thing. So the world economy doubles every, I don't know what it is, 6 years or something like that now.
Yeah.
Whereas, for the first 50,000 years, it didn't double at all. It was just kind of stagnant. So you've got this increase like this. There's a book I'm reading on artificial intelligence right now, kind of a broad scope, called Superintelligence by Nick Bostrom. And one of the things he talks about is with the advances of AI, the potential exists for human productivity and human economy, the global GDP, to double every 2 to 4 weeks. I
Wow.
mean, if you think about that now. the other problem with levering anything, levering human ability, is humans, as we've discussed, and even in this episode, are not always nice and unselfish.
Yeah.
So, the thing we worry about technologically in the world today is that bad actors, dictators, getting nuclear weapons. Will they use them? Okay, well, the ability of the destructive ability of a nuclear weapon is pretty vast, but it's very likely that the destructive ability in more subtle ways through artificial intelligence is many times more vast than that. And so if you make that levering of human intention and ability so easy through technology to implement, then maybe even the one-off bad actor. Right now it's unlikely that a single terrorist could build himself a nuclear bomb. It's just they don't have the ability to do that. But
Yeah.
what if artificial intelligence gives people the ability to do things that are so far outside of our imaginative abilities right now that it makes an individual that dangerous? So there's corporate dangers, there's individual
Yeah.
dangers.
Well, here's well, I'm going to throw a complete curveball at you, and I agree with all the things you just said. And if you were to take that like to the like not even to the extreme, but if you were to take that line of thought, like eventually AI could get to the point where a single person could come up with all the components and technology necessary to do something as bad as creating a nuclear bomb, let's say. Okay,
Yes. Yeah.
if we were to play that out for 10,000 years, then that tells me that at some point that technology through AI and AI learning and adapting and creating even faster models of AI and creating even better things of decision making, and each iteration creating a more sophisticated AI, at some point, if AI doesn't take over humankind, that guy now, instead of being able to create a single nuclear bomb that could do damage and like take out a city, could take out a solar system, could take out a
Sure.
galaxy, could
Yeah.
and we haven't seen evidence of that unless that's what black holes are. But my point is there there has to be some kind of governing principle in the
Yeah.
universe to prohibit that. I
Yeah.
don't know. Again, I'm not a scientist. I don't understand most of this stuff, but I got to imagine that if this kind of technology is able to do all these things, we would have seen evidence somewhere, I would imagine, of dastardly things done on a cosmic scale, and we haven't. So and it's kind of like I go back to, I can't remember what the name of it was. I was looking up earlier when you were talking about the Elon Musk conversation, but somebody, I don't know if it's Carl Sagan or who it was, kind of had a scale to kind of talk about the different kinds of alien life we might come across.
Oh yeah, sure. I
And
know what you.
essentially there was like, okay, well, there's a good likelihood that if we encounter alien life, they're going to be far more sophisticated than us. And who says they don't just enslave us?
Yeah.
Right. Or at the other end of the spectrum, we might come across like your loser brother-in-law that can't get a job might be, and now we're like supporting them.
Right.
Right. and and so it kind of feels like that to me with AI. Like it almost feels like we're creating an alien life force or a
Sure.
being or what. And again, I know they won't have consciousness. Maybe they will. I don't know. Probably not. But it kind of feels like we're creating this alien life force, and we're gonna have to. It can't go any other way in my mind other than figuring out at some point that's the superior being, even if we know
Yeah.
factually based on our moral compass and the facts available to us, even if we know that's not true, AI might know that it is true. And once AI can make things autonomously, can make
Right.
cars, can make weapons, can make printing presses, can make whatever, can make videos, can make pictures autonomously, and can make physical things,
Right.
like it's kind of game over for us. It doesn't really matter
Yeah.
anymore.
Right. Well, and that's what a lot of people are worried about. A lot of people, in fact, to go back to your previous point, there's a theory of why of Fermi's. I don't know if you've heard of Fermi's. I think it's Fermi's paradox that says that if there are advanced civilizations in the universe and we're not all that old, we should have met somebody by now. I mean, we really should have. We've been broadcasting out into space for 100 and some odd years. Somebody ought to have noticed. And so the question is, why hasn't that happened? So there's a theory that's popular among, smart people, I guess, or one class of smart people, I suppose, that says that there probably have been multiple civilizations like our own over the millennium, over the multi-millennium. And what happens to an intelligent civilization is that it eventually reaches a point of singularity. In fact, Elon Musk sort of mentioned singularity as one of the terms. And the idea behind that is that when a civilization reaches singularity, that it cannot cope with its own advanced creation, and it essentially dies off. And so the only reason we haven't met another advanced civilization is because they've evolved themselves out of existence. And now, I mean, that's not a very happy thought.
I understand that. I also, I haven't met the people 3 doors down from where I live.
Yeah, well,
because I
sure.
don't want to.
The universe is very big. Yeah. Well, see, that's the other theory that we're just not interesting enough.
Just because we haven't met them doesn't mean that they're not aware of us. They might think
we're
just
boring.
not be interested in meeting us.
Right. That's also another theory that's out there. That's not quite so ominous as the. I don't know if you ever watched the recent iteration of Battlestar Galactica, which is essentially.
I have missed that. I apologize. Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, I'll forgive you, I suppose. But basically the idea there is that the machines got so powerful and so smart that they almost wiped us out, and and then then they went off and did their own thing. So that.
Well, I mean, I listen. The Matrix and Terminator, like, there's no shortage of and like what was that?
HAL 2000, 2001: A Space
Odyssey.
Was that?
Yeah, Space
2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah. I mean, there's no shortage of people predicting that this is how it all kind of unwinds for us,
right?
And maybe it will. Again, I think that it's going to be like anything. Shotguns are great for home defense, and they also are great for murdering people.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I think AI is going to be the same way. I think AI is going to it will catapult our quality of life forward in ways that you and I cannot even fathom. Right. And simultaneously, it might be a risk such that it makes a nuclear bomb look like child's play. And I think that's probably the most likely result, is it's going to be all those things.
Well, that's exactly what I was just going to say, is that it's probably not going to be either or. It's probably not going to be either just benevolent or just malevolent, but like all of our tools and all of our technologies, it will probably be used, or it will, not probably, I think this is a certainty, it will be used for positive and negative. I mean, it currently is being, kids are using AI deepfakes that they create of other kids for, malicious images right now, for showing people doing things that they shouldn't be doing. So that's happening right now. I
would imagine that, again, if the countries locked in their positions right now as far as like who's enemy and who's foe and who's allies and all that kind of stuff, it won't be that way. But if they did, I can imagine a scenario where US and British and Australian AI is constantly battling Iranian and Russian and Chinese AI, and it's happening behind the scenes and we're not even aware of it. Like, I can totally see where that becomes the new warfare, and our AI is trying to protect our water supply, and their AI is trying to go after our water supply, or whatever it is. Who knows what it is? Of course, it's going to happen that way. All those things are going to happen.
Well, and the other speculative thing that is interesting about this discussion is the potential to merge AI with human beings. So the biological techno. So I know Elon Musk is an example of somebody that I believe is interested in what they call transhumanism. This idea that you could merge machines. Have you watched Star Trek, Brian? Let's try another one. Have you watched Star Trek?
Well, it depends on which. I have not seen Star Trek. Whatever the 37th iteration was, I've not seen that. I've seen like the first.
Well, that's okay.
Next
Star Trek
generation, and like.
Okay.
I didn't see Deep Space Nine and all the other nonsense that came after that.
Okay, well, then you're familiar when I say the Borg, you know what the Borg is, right?
I know what the Borg is, yeah.
Okay, so the idea, the transhumanist idea is a benevolent Borg, is a merger of person and computer. In fact, Elon Musk I don't think we've talked about this before. The Neuralink. Did we talk about the Neuralink interface? Yeah,
the guy who got the Neuralink is like Googling things with just his brain now. He doesn't have to use a mouse and a keyboard and all that stuff. Yeah.
Right. So we can essentially be what it was in Wall-E, where everybody just sits in their wheelchair floating around in space and doesn't
Right.
have to lift up a hand. But
Which will
it
be
seems
awesome
to me,
because people who lose limbs and people who lose vision and hearing and things like that, all that stuff will
yeah,
likely get fixed. I mean, there's huge ways where that will be beneficial. They might learn how to manufacture stem cells and like all kinds of who knows?
yeah.
There'll be all kinds of great benefits that I can't even imagine because I don't understand that. I don't understand the technology we have 20 years ago on some of that stuff, let alone what we're gonna have 20 years forward.
So the question is, as are we going to be able to cope with AI as human beings? So, or how well will we be able to cope? So far, we're not able to cope very well. I don't know if I shared this with you before, but there was a story out of Belgium of a person that was severely depressed and was having an interaction with some type of chat GPT. It wasn't chat GPT, but
Yeah.
it was an AI bot, and he had an ongoing generative or current versions of AI are what's called generative AI. They can follow up on the conversation. They can keep it
Yeah.
going over a period of time, not just a question and answer machine. And and this fellow had like a 2-week conversation with AI about his depression and ended up
Yeah.
killing himself because AI told him he should.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh yeah, he
now,
said that. You're right. You're probably right. It's not worth it. Just go ahead and do what you
yeah,
do what you know
just
you need
yeah,
to do.
you're
Yeah.
right. You're completely logical, and AI had him kill himself. And so, I
Well,
think
and I would argue that even if we went backwards in time 5 years, 3 years, 10 years, the social media algorithms are essentially AI.
sure,
And if
yes,
you
they
look
are.
at
Yeah,
the outcomes that are resulting from the algorithms and the clickbait and the negative things that get people's attentions and keep people's attentions, you can just look at the teen suicide rate and see that
that's right.
how that's working out.
Yep,
And it's just going to get more sophisticated. It's going to understand us better. It's going to understand how to manipulate us better. It's going to understand how to keep our attention better. And I don't think that we are going to be equipped for that because, frankly, we don't evolve that fast. If we evolve at all, it
right.
certainly is not. I mean, if you look at how humans made decisions 100 years ago or 500 years ago, like much of the premise of you and I doing this podcast is that we keep doing the same stupid shit over and over again
That's
because we
right.
don't change how we make decisions.
That's
And
right.
so the technology changes, but now the technology is able to manipulate us in ways that we don't even understand. So
That's
no, I
right.
don't think we're going to deal with that all that well.
And I think the next iteration of AI maybe not the next iteration, but one or two iterations down the road will be able to have some level, or this is the fear, will be able to have some level of self-determination. So it won't even be anymore what the creators of AI have said your boundaries are, but it'll be like a
Right.
child. So, when you have children, you try to instill in them good values, you try to instill in them morality, and eventually they make choices for their own for themselves that may or may
But
not.
how do you do that, Dave? How do you with children specifically? How do you instill upon them values and morality? What are the actions you take to do that?
Well, so you demonstrate by your life, you demonstrate by
Okay.
your words, by your
Yep.
actions, you try to
And
educate.
and when they go astray, what do you do?
Well, then you spank them, but then you go to jail.
You discipline them, and we
Yeah,
will
you
not be able to
discipline them.
discipline
Yes,
AI. There'll be
that's right.
no. So if it is like a child, which I would
That's
imagine
right.
would be like a child for like 6 months, not 27
Yeah.
years, there's no putting consequences in place for AI because
Yes.
AI has an unlimited amount of time. Like you can't put AI
Yeah.
in timeout. You can't
Right.
take away its toys. Like, what are you gonna do? Like you're gonna
Well,
have
yeah, and the problem is you won't be able. This requires us to have a level playing field. With our children, we have a more or less level playing field. They can't think faster than we can. They can't do faster than we can. AI, on the flip side, can cycle through all the applications that could possibly be
yeah.
done. So there's discussions right now of the boundaries of AI, and one of the discussions about that, one of the fact they call him the Godfather. I can't remember his name. It's a harder name to pronounce, but he talks about, look, we have to stop AI altogether because AI currently, if it can access the internet, through the internet, you can send an email of a DNA sequence from one place in the world to another, get someplace else in the world to spin up this DNA sequence, and now you've got a super virus. So,
Yeah.
and
Well, I
beyond
look at it
whatever.
like I don't see any way there won't be. Again, I don't think I'm pessimistic on this. I think I'm realistic and pragmatic, but I don't see there's
Yeah,
any way where we won't have at least minor instances of things like, let's take the Google thing recently with where they decided white people would not be allowed to they're not allowed to show on AI
Oh yeah,
conjured up images. Like when it said to
that's right.
show us pictures of
Black George
Nazis from
Washington.
the 40s, they showed a black person, an Asian person, a Native
Right.
American person, a Chinese. Again, it was
Yeah.
just it was silly, right? So those kinds of people are going to be doing this stuff, and they're going to make those kinds of mistakes. So what happens when they decide, they being the creators of AI, decide that, and again, I'm going to go way out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that they decide that Donald Trump's a bad person.
Right.
And they decide that people who vote for Donald Trump are bad people.
Right.
And then AI says, okay, well, those bad people, like we need to limit their ability to impact others negatively. Well, what would that
Sure.
mean? That would mean not allowing them to drive. So you just turn off their cars
Turn off
because
the car,
now
yep.
there's kill switches in all the cars, right?
Yep.
Maybe you turn off their water supply, or maybe you turn off their power supply to grocery stores, or like whatever. Like again, how could it go any other way? We're already seeing little tiny flare-ups where the creators are deciding who is bad and who is good in a moral sense based on characteristics they determine, like race, like gender, like religious beliefs, like whatever. And they're deciding to remove data or change the moral code on how decisions are made based on those kind of immutable characteristics. Now, so then you add in like, well, who's inherently bad based on the thoughts that they have? Again, how could it go any other way than AI decided, well, you know what? We shouldn't have um, bald white men over the age of 50 who have a BMI over 27 because they're teaching people bad habits. They need to go away,
Right.
and they're probably not morally good anyway. So let's just, what do we got to do to get rid of them?
Yeah.
Again, I'm not. I don't think I'm being hyperbolic there. Like
No.
again, we're seeing little indications of this kind of thing happening now. How could it go any other way? I would love to know how.
Well, so now the question is, what do you do about it? So, do you think that the government regulation will restrain that? I have an opinion.
Well, Dave, I have a theory on government functionality, and my theory is really simple. How you do anything is how you do everything.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at how are they managing things like basic things like borders, okay, how are they managing basic things like inflation? How are they managing basic things like how the banking system's supposed to work? How are they managing basic things like not being corrupted? I'm going to go out on a limb again and suggest that there'll be times in our period in the future where same kinds of decisions that are made now to move a certain preferred agenda forward at the detriment of the many to help the few will happen with AI, just like it happens with tanks, and just like it happens with monetary policy, and just like it happens with what kinds of industries get favorable regulation and disfavorable regulation. It's all going to be the same.
Well, I think there's one small difference, and that is, I think that most of our legislators have some basic understanding of like warfare and economy. And I mean, maybe I'm overly optimistic there, but I think I heard not too long back that a significant number of those in Congress don't even use a computer. So how in the world are you going to assess? Yes, they have staffs that tell them what to do. They've got their own little human AIs that tell them what to do. But if you don't even use the type of the last generation of technology, how can you be reasonably counted on to regulate something as complex as an artificial intelligence?
Well, I think that the mistake I think you're making is taking the wild leap that they actually care about what is good for the populace versus
Okay, well,
themselves.
there's that.
And in this moment in time, I'm not being sarcastic. In this moment in time, I think that by and large, lawmakers and policymakers are at least as interested in what's in it for them as they are the population as a whole. Now, I think that we go through ebbs and flows with that. I think that when Lincoln was a president, he had to make decisions that very much prioritize the needs of the whole at the exclusion of the needs of few. Again, he suspended habeas corpus. That's a great example where he's like, the needs of the whole are so great that we're going to do things that we wouldn't have otherwise done. I think the same thing happened through World War II and the Great Depression. I think the same thing happened through the Revolutionary War. And I think the same thing will happen over the next 10 years from now. But when I look at Kenny G's time, and I look at the year 2090 and the year 2100, when he's going to be coming into his era, like we are in now,
right.
where people have these tribalistic and they're rewriting history and redetermining what's good, and they're going to throw out things that have been agreed upon for 250 years, like the Constitution in our case, and whatever his version is. In that era, I am especially worried about how AI will be used over the next 10 years or so. I think in this crisis mode, whether it's an economic crash or another pandemic or a major war or all three, we will get to a point over the next few years where we make very pragmatic decisions. We will have to put the needs of the collective above the needs of the lawmakers getting rich on Wall Street right now and doing the things that they're doing that are absolutely heinous and corrupted and like awful, and they're horrible people in making bad decisions that are very selfish, and they're passing laws that they don't even read because they get benefits from the lobbying firms and the industries. Like, okay, so that will come to an abrupt end over the next few years, I think.
Sure.
I don't know, of course. But it's 70 years from now, I worry about the real damage that will be done by AI when we're in this mode again.
Yeah, because it's inevitable that by the turn of the next century, humanity will have powers and abilities that we don't even can't even fathom right now. Just like we have powers and abilities that, my grandparents' generation when they were growing up couldn't even, begin to fathom the things that we do and the way that we communicate. So I suspect
the counterbalance. Yeah.
So I suspect that. So to me, it seems like that will raise the stakes in Kenny G's day, just like the nuclear bomb has raised the stakes in our day, just like the rifle and the repeating arms raised the stakes in the last crisis era.
Yeah, the Gatling gun and mustard gas, they probably had the same kind of conversation we're having now. Like, holy smokes, if you can use a chemical and the wind can carry it over 100 yards and kill 27,000 people, oh my God, whoever has control of mustard gas from now on is going to rule the world, right?
Exactly.
I suspect these conversations, again, I don't want to be the guy who makes my living making horse-drawn carriages and I'm afraid of automobiles. I don't want to be that guy.
Right.
I also, and I know we're running short on time, but I want to throw this one last thought at you.
Yeah.
And that is, I can't remember where I heard this, and I don't know if it's true or not. And I've tried to find this and I can't, but somewhere along the way, I heard that the percentage of time in the human existence that we had a conscious awareness that we were more advanced than previous generations was the minority by a lot. So, for example, if you went 400 years after the pyramids in Egypt were built, they had no idea how the pyramids were built. They were actually in a regressive mode where the society and our abilities had kind of hit a pinnacle, and they regress significantly for the next several hundred years. And actually being in a regressive state is like 80% of our entire existence.
Interesting.
We go through these small periods of time where we make these big progressions.
Yeah.
But actually, the majority of the time we look back and we don't understand things that happen in fairly recent history. Well, so I wonder if AI might be something like that, where we hit a pinnacle and then things get broke, and we walk down the road and you pick up a cell phone and you're like, what? How does this thing even work?
Right. Well, I wonder if the result of AI is that AI will know, but none of the rest of us will. It's the last application.
Certainly possible.
A lot of the discussion right now is that AI is the last application you're going to have on your computer, because you aren't you use Excel. Why you don't need to use Excel anymore? You just tell the AI to build the Excel formulas and the pivot tables and the P&L and the balance sheet and do comparative analysis, and it'll do it for you. So maybe that's the outcome. Yeah. Maybe AI will know, but we won't know.
True, and I do think it's going to completely upset the economy as we understand it, and that people who do things like plumbers and electricians who go on crawl spaces to fix things are going to have a much higher per dollar earning capacity than pharmacists and people who go to very white collar educated industries but are easily replaced by AI. I think it's going to completely reshape the economic structure in ways that we can't even understand. And I don't think that's terrible, by the way. I'm not against that.
They call it creative destruction. Every time a new technology is coming along,
Yeah.
some people have lost their jobs and other people have gained, and that's the way it's going to be this time around.
So I don't think I answered your question. Like, is it going to be a good thing or bad thing? It's going to be all the above. And
On that, we agree.
it's going to be an interesting ride. How about that? I know.
I'll sign up for that. Absolutely.
All right. Don't
That's
forget,
fun.
go to unsilentpodcast.com. Tell Dave where we got it right, where we missed the mark, all that good stuff. We do want to hear what you guys think as far as, are we completely off base? Are we completely misreading the room on this kind of stuff? There's no way we could ever know on this particular topic for sure, but love to hear what your thoughts are. What do you think is going to happen with AI? I'd love you to jump in and tell us. Go to unsilentpodcast.com. Go to our Rumble channel. They got a great place so you can make some comments there. Until next time, this is Dave and Brian signing off.
See you next week.
Do you want to be Unsilent? Make your voice heard on our social media channels and share where you think we got it right or wrong. Go to unsilentpodcast.com for social links so you can join the discussion.